Good evening to everyone and welcome to the SPM revision seminar online. And today's subject is English. Before I introduce the speaker, anyone who would like to ask a question answered by the speaker, please post the questions on the chat box so we can read them out during the Q&A session. Besides that, for the Form 5 students this year, we are offering School Achievers Scholarship Award SASA. We do highly encourage all Form 5 viewers to submit your application through our webpage. For find out more information, please log on to our webpage to find out more. Today we have Ms Ayeswary, lecturer from the Faculty of University Foundation Studies, as a speaker for today. I'll hand it over to you.
Good evening, students. Welcome back for our next SPM revision seminar. This week is week 6, so let's not waste time and let's start. Okay, so in this week, what we're going to look into is we're going to look into 2 poems. So it's going to be 2 poems of Form 5. So this last few weeks, I've been doing Form 4 poems. One is The Charge of the Light Brigade. The other one is A Living Photograph. In 2018, your poem question was The Charge of the Light Brigade. In 2019 was The Living Photograph. So Form 5 poems may come up in 2021. So let's start with the first one. So you all are very familiar with this. What has happened to Lulu? This poem was written by a poet, Charles Causley. All right, so Charles Causley is a Cornish poet. He's Cornish, he lives in Cornwall, England. All right, he used to be a schoolmaster as well as a writer. Okay, his work is noted for its simplicity and directness. Okay, for its association, he usually writes stories which is about folk stories that is native to where he is from, so from Cornwall, so back at his hometown itself. All right, he a little bit background of Charles Causley is that he had a very rough background in his childhood, where he had to leave school at 15 to earn money as an office boy, and then he served in the Royal Navy during the World War II. He later worked as a teacher at a school, and in 1958, Causley was made a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature. Okay, so let's go by the stanzas. So, in the first stanza, what has happened to Lulu, mother? What has happened to Lou? There's nothing in a bed but an old rag doll, and by its side a shoe. Why is her window wide, mother, the curtain flipping free, and only a circle on the dusty shelf where her money box used to be? All right, in stanza 1, what has happened to Lulu? What has happened to Lou? It's being repeated because the child or this person, okay, has realized that one of the family members is missing. So this child has gone to the mother and asking, where is Lulu? All right, there is nothing in her bed but an old rug doll. So she feels that the room is empty. As she walked in, there's nothing. It's just her bed as well as an old rug doll, and by its side a shoe. So everything is gone. So the person is wondering, the child basically is wondering to know where the sister is. All right. Number 2, why is her window wide, mother, the curtain flapping free? All right. So as she goes into the room, she notices a lot of things. So the windows are wide open, the curtains are freely flapping, all right, and only a circle on the dusty shelf. So she begins to wonder, where is everything? Where is a money box? Why did Lulu need money? Because if you're just going up for a while, why do you need so much money? Why do you need to carry all your money box? Okay. Then we go into stanza 3, stanza 4. Sorry about this. Okay. Why do you turn your head, mother? And why do teardrops fall? And why do you crumple that note on the fire and say it is nothing at all? So when when the child was questioning the mother just turned her head away and she started crying. So she wants to know. So this child is very, very curious. All right. Why did she turn the head away? Why is she crying? Why is she crumpling the note and putting it on fire? And why is she not saying anything? All right. So this child is very, very curious. Like, why is the mother not saying anything? The sister is disappeared. Why is the mother not telling me anything? Stanza 4. I woke to voices late last night. I heard an engine roar. Why do you tell me the things I heard were a dream and nothing more? So in the first two lines of fourth stanza, all right, so when this child was sleeping, she heard voices late last night. So she heard people talking and she heard an engine roar. So this child had seen, or more like heard and looked at, heard basically, not see, heard all these sounds, but the mother tells it's just a dream. So the child is questioning, why do you associate what I heard as a dream? So she's still wondering what is going on. I heard somebody cry, mother, in anger or in pain. But now I ask you why, mother, you say it was a gust of rain. So she's telling what all she has heard. She's telling, she's wondering, all right? Okay, but what does the mother say? The mother just says, no, she just brushes away. That means when you say brushes away, it means you say, oh, it's just the wind, or it's just your dream, don't worry. Okay? Why do you wonder about as though you don't know what to do? What has happened to Lulu? What has happened to Lu? All right? So in stanza 6, sorry, the child is getting very, very restless. He really wants to know. So he keeps on repeating what has happened to Lu, what has happened to Lu, over and over, because he needs an explanation. All right? So this is basically a brief summary of the stanzas. All right? So here, basically, it's the poem revolves around a child, okay, realizes that the sister is missing. Okay, so the child realizes that the sister is missing and he questions the sister's disappearance. All right, so he questions the sister's disappearance by asking questions of what he had heard, of what he had, sensed, he felt. All right, the crying was more like anger and in pain. Okay, so all that he heard, observed, analyzed, and felt, and was trying to tell the mother, but the mother just didn't do anything. So the real meaning, figurative meaning, basically means the underlying meaning. What if you see in the slides that I showed you, you had the stanzas and then you had the meaning. That's what you call literal. So basically, what you see is what you write. But the underlying meaning to this is, it's basically the issue of teenage runaway disease. Right? There's so many cases on teenage runaway. All right, and parents often do not realize. Those days it was very, very hard. Parents do not, it's not like us, like when you want to run away or so, you'd be thinking 10 times. But those days it's like you can just jump off the window. All right, even though the parents restricts their child to not to meet people, to not talk to strangers, but the children rebel. Okay, and when they rebel, all right, they start getting influenced by people. And then they start going out, they just start leaving home, and then they sometimes get into trouble. All right. So, and also this poem also shows a young child is innocence. All right, the innocence of a young child who is puzzled. So that's why he's asking a lot of why, asking about what has happened. Like he wants to know. This child is very, very curious. Okay. And also, how does the parents deal with this problem? All right, and what does the mother do? The mother just keeps quiet. The mother doesn't say anything. Okay, so this is the entire poem. Basically, this is what has happened to Lulu is all about. All right, so the setting of this poem is basically in a house. All right, in that person's house itself. The point of view, so that in this poem is about what has happened to Lulu mother. It's more of the persona itself. So it could be the poet. You might never know. It could have been his childhood life, or it could be the poet telling it in a first-person point of view. All right. So, and it happens late at night. So the setting when it happens late at night is where the person has left and all these things have happened. All right. Language and style. There is so much of repetitions in the sense of, for example, what has happened to Lulu, okay, being repeated so many times, and why is the windows open, why isn't there anything else, where is the money box, why does, a lot of repetition on this, okay, and the child keeps repeatedly telling or asking, why are you brushing off what I really want to know? All right. There's also metaphors in it, comparison. Right. There's also image being shown. All right. And there's also compare and contrast. All right. Compare and contrast here is basically, if you see in this picture here, symbolism. So this picture here of a bed. All right. So this is an abandoned bed, and this is a rag doll. So this abandoned bed shows that it relates to the disappearance of the sister. All right, and this rag doll here looks into an innocent child. Okay, so this rag doll is a symbolism of an innocent child, where it's talking about this child. The child here is basically the sister's childhood. All right, so that is a symbol here. It's not just there for nothing. There's a reason why the rag doll is there. It's basically to symbolize the innocent child, or the person's sister's childhood life. All right. Okay. Next, the flapping of curtains. I'm sure when you're at home, sometimes the curtains will like flap, with the strong wind and all that. This is what symbolizes freedom. Okay, it symbolizes freedom, how Lulu managed to thought that she got her freedom. All right, and this one, the dust. I remember what was the line. And only a circle on the dusty rug. This one, all right, it talks about, okay, how Lulu has reborn, or like has no longer have a past life, and she moves on. All right, and this one here, just a minute. Okay, all right, this one here, it shows basically there was supposed to be an engine roll. All right, yeah. So if you hear the sound of the engine roll, it's basically showing a disappearance act. Okay. All right. Now the themes of this poem is basically importance of close family ties, how it is important to know each one's suffering, and it's very, very important these days. Okay, love for our family members, running away from home, that's also a theme. That's also the topic of this poem. All right, as well as coping with the loss of family members. So how do you cope with it? How do you deal with telling to your child, all right, to a small child that the sister has run away or has gone? So how do you do that? Do you just brush it off? Do you not tell the child, or do you tell it? Or, so all these are basically the topics. All right. So what will the moral values be is basically in these themes. All right. If let's say there was a moral value asked in relation to this poem, you can say we should have a very close family ties with our family members. Okay, here we must love, or we must have love for our family members. Okay, we should not run away from home. Right? We should know, we should know how to cope with the loss of family members. So when you have moral values, you use the words we should, we must. Okay? All right. So as always, you will have questions on this. Okay? So all these questions here you can see, all right, it's basically relates to the poem. Okay, so who is the persona in the poem? So the persona is basically the child. All right, who is Lulu? So sister. Okay, in stanza 1, what are the 2 items Lulu left behind? So if you look at stanza 1, what are the 2 items? It's basically her bed as well as a rug doll. All right, which item in stanza 1 symbolizes innocence? As I said, it will be her rug doll. Okay, and what does the curtain represent? Freedom. So you may get questions if, let's say, what has happened to Lulu were to come out. You may get questions in relation to something on symbolism. What does this represent? What does that represent? So it's very, very important to understand, all right, to understand these symbols, all right? And the language in this poem is very straightforward. It's not that hard to understand, all right? If, let's say, even if you were to not able to understand a few words, it could be like all rug dolls, because rug dolls are not very common these days. Rug dolls are like these, you know, like these big dolls, and like they have pleated hairs, like rug style. Okay, or yeah, that's about it, because everything else in this poem, all right, is very straightforward. And even if you were not able to get it the first time, when you read it again, you'll be able to follow. So my suggestion is for you to look into the symbols of this poem. So the symbols, or the images that show a symbol, for example, the bed, okay, to show that she has disappeared. The rug dolls to show that she's innocent, all right. The flapping of the curtains to show that she has freedom, all right. The next thing was the dust on the shelf to show her past life. Okay, she has left her past life. So when we say past life, it's not meaning like her previous birth. What we meant is she has left her past life in relation to, because she was at home, right? She was like with all the restriction that she has, so she was at home. So now she has left everything and she's going on with a new life, right? So the dust represents that. And why did they say dust representing past life? Is basically because in reality, when we die, okay, we just turn into ashes or dust. All right, so that's how they use symbols. Okay, and as well as the engine roars, the car, to show that she's gone. All right. All right, so these are some questions here that relates to the that doesn't have any, it's basically hot question. All right, so it's not given in the poem, it's what you think about it. So for the first one, what happened to the money box? Give a reason for your answer. So as you can know, the money box disappeared. So why do you think it disappeared? It could have been because she needed money. All right, so that's why she took her money and gone. All right, and why do you think the mother turned her head? Her mother turned her head. It could be because, you see, you know, when your child has gone, has run away, in small towns, it becomes like an embarrassment. Okay, this has got to do with the lifestyle, or the I would say, the culture or the community's lifestyle in that particular town. Okay, so like towns like Cornwall are very, very small. So, you know, like though, like I'm sure you all know, if something happens in one house, like the whole neighborhood will know. All right. So let's say, you know, a child runs away, the mother feels like she has done injustice to herself. So why do you think the mother turned her head? It's because she cannot even explain how what just happened, because she's probably in total embarrassment. All right, so that could be the answer. So anything that relates to how the mother is feeling at the moment, and that's why she turned her head so that she doesn't answer her child, is acceptable. All right. Why did she throw the note in the fire? All right, so why do you think she threw the note in the fire? Provide reasons for your answers. So it could have been because she was frustrated. She felt like she didn't want to see the notes again. Or it also because when you throw something in fire, it disappears, right? So she feels that throwing something in a fire, all right, the person is gone. That could have been because if you relate this to real life, like when people die, they bury or they cremate. So it's basically, cremate, like fire and all that. So when you throw something in the fire, it turns into ashes. All right. So that could be it. But I am open to any other answers. So if you all have any answers that you want to share later, do let me know. All right, do share it on the Q&A, and we will have a discussion after I finish the 2 poets. All right, how do you think of Lulu's actions? Do you agree? So this is coming from Lulu's perspective. All right, so it could be, you could take a stand that she did injustice, like she did something wrong. Okay, and you can give your reason to it. Or you can also say that she did the right thing. So it has both sides. Because in literature, there's no right or wrong answer. It's very, very subjective. It depends on how you take it. Okay? How do you suppose Lulu should act when she disagreed with her mother? So how do you think she should act? It could have been like, she could probably reason out her points. Or okay, she shouldn't have been too harsh. She shouldn't have let go. And then you give your reasons. So if you have any other answers in relation to this 5, do let me know, all right, in the Q&A, and then we can discuss in a while. All right, so this is basically what has happened to Lulu, the poem. So in short, what has happened to Lulu, all right, is so what has happened to Lulu is basically about how a sister has run away from the house, and the child is very, very curious to know what just happened. So she starts asking questions to the mother. However, the mother is not able to give an appropriate answer to the child. All right. Okay. So this is what has happened to Lulu. Now we go into your next poem, which is basically your last poem that you'll be doing for SPM. So there's 4 poems. Is A Poison Tree. All right. So Poison Tree was written by William Blake. All right. So in this poem, it's talking about basically about friendship. So I want you to think about your friends and what they mean to you. All right. And have you ever been in a situation when you had an argument or something happened that was left unresolved? Or if you had an argument with that person, it was left unresolved, and how did you overcome it? Did you just let it go? Did you just forgive that person, or are you still angry with that person? Okay, so you can write it down on your experience on a piece of paper, or if you want to share it later, it's up to you. Okay, this is just something for you to reflect. All right. So William Blake. William Blake is basically a Londoner, all right, and he's 69 years old. All right. So that's a brief bio about William Blake. Okay. Now I am going to play the poem. All right. So I'm going to play the poem for y'all too. So this is the poem, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play it so that y'all can listen to it. So William Blake is basically telling this poem. All right.
I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not. My wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles, and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, where the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
Okay, so this is the poem. All right. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so before that, when you actually went through the poem, all right, when you went through the poem just now, when you heard the recital of it, there was a bit of like an a suspense feeling, all right, an anger and hatred feeling, all right. So the first stanza, the summary of the first stanza is that, okay, the first stanza is, I was angry with my friend until my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe and I told it not, my wrath did grow. So this persona is angry, this person is angry with his friend and his foe, okay? He talks about his misunderstanding with his friend and gets over it. But he does not talk about his anger to his foe, and it grows into a plant. So between these three people, all right, so there's two good friends and there's a foe. And foe here, okay, we use foe is basically a classic olden day way of saying enemy. Okay, all right. And when we see the word wrath, all right, wrath means you are like anger, wrath is like anger, angry, all right. So there are three people here. So there's person A, person B, and person C. So person C is basically the enemy, all right, and person A is the main person. He basically forgives person B, but he doesn't forgive person C. All right, so how does he overcome his anger or frustration? By growing a plant. And what plant does he grow? An apple tree. Okay, so he pours out his hatred towards it. All right, then the second stanza, okay, and I water it in fear, night and morning with my tears, and I sunned it with a smile and with soft, deceitful wiles. So he feeds this plant with anger and hatred. Okay, he waters his plants with his tears, not literally his tears, but he's crying, he's feeling frustrated as he waters the plants. All right, he nourishes it with fake smiles and deceitful wiles. Fake smiles means it's like being a sinister. That means being very another way to say it is like having a criminal mind. All right, okay. Then third stanza, his tree of anger grows and was poisonous because it's filled with anger and hatred. Okay, so in stanza 3 in the poem it says, and it grew both day and night till it bore an apple bright, and my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. So he made sure that it was seen by his enemy. All right, and he grew this apple tree with so much of anger. It was poisonous because it was filled with anger and hatred. All right, the tree bears apples so that foe can see it and wants to eat it, so he will want to steal the apple. All right, and then what happens in stanza 4? And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole, in the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. So one dark night, this enemy sneaks into this person's house and steals his poisonous apple. He eats it and he dies. The next morning when the persona wakes up, okay, he feels glad to see his foe dead under his poison tree. So in short, he planted this tree. He was pouring out all his anger, all his hatred onto this tree, all right, over a misunderstanding with his enemy, and it made the apple look so bright that when the enemy ate it and the enemy died, the persona felt very, very happy. Okay, so the literary elements in this, all right, so the setting is basically in his garden under the poison tree, all right, so it is between late at night as well as the next morning. Okay, the tone, there is a lot of anger, all right, there's a lot of bitterness, all right, there's a lot of accusing, a lot of hatred. Okay, language, the language here is pretty simple except for 1 or 2 words, all right. Okay, you have personification, you have metaphor, you have symbolism, okay, and you have imagery, all right, creating images. So the theme for this poem, okay, this theme is also talking about relationship. It's also talking about bonding. It's talking about how important it is for communication. All right. So harboring ill feelings against someone, you know, how you take it when you have ill feelings, when you have like hatred, anger feeling against someone. All right. The danger of repressing anger. All right. The importance of communicating when there is a misunderstanding, okay, and also forgiving and forgetting. So this is very, very important. And sometimes I would say all these poems, especially like a poison tree, it relates to all of us. You know, all of us have friends. All of us have. Sometimes we always have misunderstanding with people, right? We shouldn't take it too harsh on us. We should just, okay, we should always look into both ways and see how it is best to deal with it. However, sometimes we have this thing in us that is called ego, that we tend not to, we tend to not overcome it, and we just have our ego and not talk. All right. So it's very, very important. That's why this one, importance of communicating when there is a misunderstanding, is very important, and it's a good theme here. So moral values is we should always communicate, okay, with each other when there is a misunderstanding, and we should always forgive and forget, okay, and we should never harbor our ill feelings, okay, against somebody. All right, so this is basically the themes. So in this kind of poem, all right, a lot of questions like, you know, how how does this person deal with its enemy? What does it do? All right, so this is basically the poem. All right, so for example, these are basically directly from the poem itself. So in stanza 1, why did the persona's rap with his friend out? Okay, so what was the main problem was basically the persona communicated his wrath directly to his friend. Okay, so that means he communicated directly. In stanza 2, what does it refer to? The persona's anger or wrath. And what happened to his foe, as suggested by the last line of the poem? He died after eating the poisonous apple. Okay, so these are these 3 very, very direct questions. Okay, and the poem contains several moral lessons. So you will have morals, sometimes you will have moral value questions. Okay, moral value questions. You could have theme. What is the main theme of this poem? What is, or in like a direct question, where did this poem take place? What is the setting? What is the time? Okay, so state 2 moral lessons that you have learned. I have learned is we must not suppress our anger, or we must communicate our feelings openly and frankly. All right. Anger is unhealthy emotion, or we should not behave in devious ways. Okay, so these are the two moral values that I learned. Anyone has any other moral values in relation to poison tree, please do share it on the Q&A and we will look into it later. Okay. In stanza 1, why do you think the persona? So these questions here now are basically HOTS questions. All right. So these 3 questions here. Okay. These 3 questions here are HOTS questions. Okay. So in stanza 1, why do you think the persona did not want to tell his enemy that he was hungry? How did the persona manage to attract his enemy's attention? Based on stanza 4, describe the persona's feelings in the end. Why does he feel that way? So all these are not directly stated. So based on what you read is what you write. Okay, so these are my answers that I have. So for the first one, he was afraid of his enemy. Okay, so why do you think? Because he was able to communicate with his friend, but not to his foe or to his enemy. All right, and as well as he was trying to pretend that he was not affected by what happened. It was just like maybe it's just a miscommunication. Okay, how did the persona manage to attract his enemy's attention? All right, by growing such a big tree with bright and shiny apples. Okay, so that's how he attracted his enemy's attention. Okay, based on stanza 4. All right, so we're looking into stanza 4. Describe the persona's feelings in the end. Why does he feel that way? All right, so he feels satisfied or pleased with his effort because his enemy is defeated in the end. Or you can also say he felt sad. But if you say he felt sad, it doesn't relate to in the line "in the morning glad I see." So when you use the word glad, you can say pleased, satisfied, happy. All right. If you say he was sad, it contradicts to that line. Okay, so make sure whatever you write, because this is HOTS question, this is your own point of view, make sure it relates to the lines in the poem. All right, so look into the lines. So that's what I said based on stanza 4. Sometimes they don't even say. All right, so we have done 2 poems. All right, Poison Tree and What Has Happened to Lulu. Okay, so what I've done here is I have put it in a table form, the different poems that you have done. So this one, okay, the living photograph is basically your form 4, and these 2 are your form 5s. All right, so the theme here between the living photograph, What Has Happened to Lulu, and a Poison Tree. Now, even though this 2 has been tested before, it might come out again. So just be prepared for all 4. All right, and it's not that difficult, because if you see the themes for living photograph, What Has Happened to Lulu, and a Poison Tree, it revolves in between relationship between family and friends. In the living photograph, it was a relationship between the child as well as the grandmother. All right, how she still looks so real, even though it was just a photograph. How she made that photograph look like the grandmother was just standing right next to her. Okay, What Has Happened to Lulu was a relationship between a family. All right, how the family solves problems, how the family solves households, situation. For example, the sister ran away. How did the mother talk to the son about the sister running away? All right, a Poison Tree here is talking about relationship between friends. All right, how do you deal with hatred in friends? What did the person do? However, for the charge of the Light Brigade was about war and sacrifices. Okay, how the 600 soldiers that marched, because that is their job, that is their duty, into a battleground without support, without any equipment, and they were just going into they're going straight into their thoughts. Okay, point of view here is this tree is basically the first person. So it could be, when we say first person, it could be the poet, or it could be the poet writing it in a first person. Okay, usually poems, as what we have gone through sometimes, poems, usually if it's a first person, it could have a bit of personal feelings to it, personal touch to it. All right. And this living photograph was basically the persona itself. A poison tree and what has happened to Lulu, it could be the persona, or it could be the poet, or it could be the poet in the first person. The Charge of the Light Brigade was Tennyson's poem, where it was in third person, all right, where Tennyson literally retold the whole scenario, or the whole thing that happened in that war as in a third person, like as if he was there and he observed and he wrote the poem. Okay, the setting of it is basically in the first tree, it's in the house, right? The housing compound. So it's in the person's house or in the garden with a poison tree. However, for the Charge of the Light Brigade, it was in the war. It was basically the battleground. Okay, the language and style. So for the first two poems, The Living Photograph and What Has Happened to Lulu, it was very simple and easy, very straightforward understanding that you can paint. But it's just that what has happened to Lulu, there are so many symbols that could have many meanings to it. All right. But whatever I had just explained in terms of like the dust, in terms of like the flapping of the curtains, in terms of the throwing of the paper, all that all symbolizes something. Okay, the fire, that symbolizes something as well. And for poison tree, these words could be a bit difficult for y'all. Wrath, for sightful, wiles. What you can do with this is you can look it up in a dictionary just for a vocabulary purpose, and just know what does it mean, and try and see how that meaning fits into that poem. Okay, don't take that meaning and try and decipher the poem. Try and see how it fits. How does that word relate to the poem? As well as the Charge of the Light Brigade, like Half a League, Blundered, Valley of That. These are all very classic or old. Not so much, we don't use it nowadays in English. Okay, so after the so I'm going to stop here for now, but later you will have a Q&A on the questions that I asked. So for example, for the Lulu's one, if y'all could give me, okay, like any other answers, all right, for the Lulu's questions as well as the poison tree, and we'll have a discussion right after the advertisement. Okay, Mr. Mohan, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, sure. Just give me a second.
My name is Mardiana, and I'm a Help ADP alumni. I transferred to the United States in fall of 2018, and today I'm going to be answering some questions from Help University, so let's dive right into it. So I transferred to the University of Central Oklahoma, which is in the state of Oklahoma, and my major is professional media. The next question is, the city I'm living in is called the city of Edmond. It's a small city. It's definitely not as busy, as lively, as chaotic as it is in KL. And me being a KL kid my whole life, it definitely took me some time to adapt to like a quieter, less chaotic lifestyle. But once I got past that, it's actually a really nice place to live. And the people are just so friendly. Everyone I've met in Edmond has just been nothing but kind and nice to me. I've always gotten help when I've needed any kind of help, and I've also never gotten any kind of racial discrimination. So yeah, I'm really grateful for that. The cost of living in Edmond is not as high as it would be in other states, just because Oklahoma in general isn't that expensive to live in. So, for example, some of my friends who are living in California or in New York, I know for a fact that the rent they're paying is 3 times the rent that I pay. So, and the space that I get is pretty decent, so I'm not complaining. So I'm not going to speak for the whole university, but I do love the department that I'm in, which is the Professional Media Department in Mass Communication. So all of my professors have been really nice and really knowledgeable because all of them have been in their respective industries for years and years. And I have professors who are professional reporters. One of them is actually a professional reporter in Washington, D.C. And like media consultants, filmmakers, video producers, even like radio personalities, writers. So just they all have a lot of knowledge in what they do, and that really helps me to gain a lot of knowledge and insight as a student. And also I like that the class sizes aren't that big in my university. I've never been in like a huge lecture hall with 300 people where you don't know what's going on. All of my classes have been just quite like nice and intimate, about 15 to 20 people, 25 max. So whenever I've needed any kind of help, I could just go straight to my professor or talk to them in their office and just have a chat. So that's really nice. And I've also gotten to try many different things in my university, like film production, documentary filmmaking, broadcast news. I was a reporter, I did a podcast, like I've done a bit of everything. So I definitely learned what I like and what I don't like, and I'm thankful that I got those opportunities at my university. Honestly, I would say no, but I don't think there's any easy way to manage your expectations before you transfer, because adapting to a whole new country in itself is not easy. So everyone's adapting process is different, of course, but it's just something that everyone has to go through. There's no easy way to know what to expect, because you'll know when you get there. So there's no easy way around it, in my opinion. It's just something that everyone has to do. My experience at Help was really good, actually. It was actually amazing. I wouldn't change anything. If I go back to 2017 right now, I wouldn't change anything about my ADP experience, because some of the people that I've met from day one, they're still some of my closest and best friends until today. So I'm really grateful that I met those people at ADP. And all the professors, lecturers, advisors, staff, just everyone at ADP is amazing. Shout out to them. Shout out to Ms. Naidi. You guys are awesome, and thanks for making my transfer process so smooth and easy. So I would definitely recommend Help ADP, because I had a wonderful experience. And if you know for a fact that you want to transfer to the US, UK, Canada, or Australia, and I have friends who are studying in all of those countries who transferred from ADP, I think Help ADP is a great place to help you to get there, because you'll be able to fulfill the requirements that you need, and it's a great stepping stone for you to just like transfer to wherever you want in the world with those set of requirements. So with that, I would recommend ADP, and I think it's a great place if you want to transfer to another country. And that's all I have. That's all the questions. Thank you for watching this video, and yeah, that's all. Bye.
Over to you, Ms. Ayeswary.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I've got about a few questions here. I'm also like 3. Okay, so so Daniel said that maybe Lulu wanted to study overseas but was not allowed to so she left. It could be. Your answer is it can be acceptable. Lulu's actions are wrong because she can talk to her mother about whatever problems she was facing. Yes, that can be acceptable as well. All right, so I think that is all I have for today. Anyone else have any other questions that they want to ask? If there is no question, it's good to see y'all. I hope y'all are staying safe wherever y'all are. For those of you who are having your trials, all the best. For those of you who your trials are delayed due to the current situation, don't feel bad, and just revise and don't lose hope. And I'll see y'all I think the following week. Till then, have a good rest and have a good week. And thank you guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ayeswary. We have hopefully we all have definitely learned a lot, and we all probably have a clear thought about this English session. And tomorrow's session will be at Maths at 8 p.m. onwards. So good night, everyone, and I'll see you all tomorrow.